The Samoa Observer, the only daily newspaper for Samoa, yesterday published on the front page a photo relating to the death of a fa'afafine that was controversial in nature and brought into light issues relating to fa'afafines as well as press freedom and ethics relating to the publication of images that are related to suicide.
What Samoa Observer did was wrong at all levels.
Clear violation of media guidelines in Samoa, especially with reference to the newly endorsed media code of practice.
I was incensed. I was very angry. That should not have been on the front page of the major newspaper in Samoa.
You were one of the more vocal Samoans on Facebook yesterday. What drove you to be so vocal about this particular story?
Well, I saw the picture first. I thought that was very insensitive to that dead person. I wasn't aware of her gender at the time, but what made me angrier is the article that accompanied it. It re-victimizes her, Jeanine.
Do you think the front page was a fair representation of the gender of the victim?
No, that was misgendering.
I have been an advocate of fa'afafine issues as well as the LGBTI issues. What I realized when I read the article yesterday was that I questioned the standards and ethics of journalism in Samoa.
Samoa Observer betrayed the trust of the Samoan people on how you should carry out your job as a journalist, in terms of how they came up with the explanation that the deceased committed suicide. We all read the story. It was all based on hearsay. How to best report suicide for such a small community like Samoa. We have universal guidelines. Should this story have been given the priority to run or not? Because it all comes down to that very bad editorial call to have that story and that photograph run on the front page. Now, the guidelines clearly states it should not.
I do respect and commend the Samoa being a frontliner of accepting and respecting the freedom of the press. But of course, even any right, freedoms, they have limits. And for example, the freedom of the press to express the opinion and the interest of the public is limited when it goes to the extent that it's invading the privacy of another human being.
We set up this training school and trying to promote the values of press freedom in this country and trying to be part of the industry. And yet, those at the top did not respect that media code of practice.
Freedom of the press, it's your shield against government intrusion. It's your shield against government stopping your voice. But you shouldn't turn that around to the public and do that character assassination. Shame on you, Samoa Observer.
It was just inappropriate, disrespectful, distasteful, and also unethical.
As a lecturer and, looking at the holistic picture of, when that story and that photograph came out, there were a lot of issues that came to mind in terms of how we're going to train the next generation of journalists and our placement within the Samoan society.
The Samoa Observer had only started or instigated something that to us as the advocates of these fa'afafine human rights issues, we realize we haven't done much. It's a feedback on us. We need to do a lot more. And we also realize that Samoa Observer is not necessarily the enemy. It's the ignorance of the fa'afafine issues.
Just these snide comments against fa'afafines and at the end of the day, like, if I were in their shoes, I do not want to hear those comments. If I was Jeanine, I do not want my parents to see that photo.
A statement of apology was issued by Samoa Observer, but it was not a full apology. Attempts to contact the Samoa Observer were not successful today, but we will still try and reach out to them for their comments on this issue.
We've heard the apology, not so much an apology, but we've heard the arrogance of the Samoa Observer editor saying that this was all a propaganda. You know, it's going to be a reference for so many years to come. And, you know, trying to justify our placement in society, it's going to be a very, you know, it's going to take a lot of work to actually rebuild the face of journalism in this society when, you know, we're not there yet. We're trying to make this an honorable profession.
Human rights, constitutional rights, they all evolved from common sense. These laws are very new, modern to us, but we've always had our Samoa that is based on mutual respect, ava fata and fa'aloalo. These things were not exhausted by Samoa Observer.